Hello, and welcome to Midnight Affairs Tales. Your support means everything to us. We'd love to know, which geographical location are you joining from today? At home on the go, share with us below now. Let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Last Normal Day. The morning sun poured through the open window, warm and golden, like nothing could possibly go wrong. Colt Maddox tied his watch, buttoned his shirt, and glanced toward the kitchen where Lana was pouring coffee in her robe. She smiled at him, soft, sweet, rehearsed. "Don't forget dinner at Dad's," she said, handing him the cup. "He wants to talk about expanding the North Wing." "Sure," Colt nodded. "Same time. 6 sharp. Dress nice." He kissed her cheek. She smelled like lavender and something colder, something unfamiliar. The coffee was still hot when he stepped into the elevator at Stroud Developments, the towering glass fortress owned by Victor Stroud, his father-in-law and boss. Colt didn't know it then, but this was his last moment of stability. By noon, his badge stopped working. "Colt Maddox?" the front desk assistant called. "Mr. Stroud wants to see you." The conference room was quiet. Victor stood at the window, back turned. 2 HR reps sat stiff in leather chairs. "You're done here, Colt," Victor said, not turning around. "Today's your last day." "No warning?" Colt asked, trying to read their faces. "Not up for discussion. Your severance will be wired. You'll be escorted out." Victor finally turned. Cold eyes. No emotion. Just dismissal. Colt's heart beat slower. "Does Lana know?" Victor smiled faintly. "She will." An hour later, Colt's keys were deactivated. His inbox was wiped. When he reached home, the front door was cracked open. Inside, the place was empty. Half the furniture gone. Closet stripped. A single envelope on the counter. In Lana's handwriting. "I can't do this anymore. Please don't call me." Colt stood in the silent house, looking at the space where their wedding photo used to hang. Why now? Why all at once? And what did Victor mean by "she will"? "Hey, just want to speak from the heart for a second. I've been working really hard on both my channels, writing, editing, everything by myself. But lately, it feels like the support isn't what it used to be. New subscribers aren't coming in the way they did before, and honestly, it gets disheartening. I've started a new channel called Betrayal Stories Lab, where I share even deeper, more emotional stories. If my content has ever meant something to you, please check it out. The link's in the description. Just one click. It would really mean a lot. Thanks for sticking around. Your support keeps me going." Colt sat in the motel parking lot as the rain tapped on the windshield like a slow clock ticking down. The motel was cheap, neon lit, and smelled like stale beer and regret. Room 209. That's what the front desk gave him. No calls. No messages. He checked his joint account. 0. His business phone? Disconnected. He was shut out, completely erased. He lay on the motel bed staring at the ceiling as thunder rolled in. His phone vibrated. A text from a number he didn't know. She moved in with him. No name. No context. Attached, a grainy photo. Lana, sitting at a rooftop bar, leaning into a man in a tailored gray suit. Colt's jaw clenched. He drove for hours that night. No music. Just the hum of tires and the weight in his chest. He stopped at a diner around 2 a.m., ordered black coffee, and stared at the steam like it could tell him what the hell happened. 2 booths down, a couple laughed, young, careless, still untouched by this kind of betrayal. Colt didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just sat there, swallowing the fire building in his chest. By sunrise, he made a decision. No cops. No lawyers. No begging. He'd been set up, discarded, humiliated in public and in private. He was done playing fair. Back at the motel, he opened an old suitcase. Beneath the false bottom, a black flash drive, a second phone, and a burner laptop. He powered it up. The startup screen blinked green. Code name, Shard last login. For years ago, he typed. The system booted. Colt Maddox, ex-intelligence, cyber ops, deep access. They thought they fired a contractor. They didn't know he used to build the firewalls they'd never even seen. Now it was his turn. Room 209's curtains stayed closed for days. Colt didn't leave unless he had to. He wiped his devices, rerouted his IP, spoofed his phone identity. By the end of the week, it was like he didn't exist. He wasn't Colt Maddox anymore. Not to the world. The screen flickered to life. A blank command prompt. He typed a string of code and tapped into Victor Stroud's corporate server. The security was decent, but not as decent. He breached it in under 8 minutes. Bank records. Executive messages. Travel logs. He filtered through everything, scanning for Lana's name. She popped up more times than expected, attached to travel expenses, a burner account, 2 flagged offshore transfers. What was she doing with wire access? He clicked into one flagged folder. Video attachments. Surveillance. From the company's own internal cams. There she was, Lana, entering Victor's office late at night, sitting on his desk, laughing, pouring 2 glasses of scotch. Colt's stomach turned. One more click. A voicemail file. Victor's voice. He'll be out by noon. The account will be cleaned by night. Make sure you're not there when he gets back. You're free now, sweetheart. Sweetheart. Colt didn't move for a full minute. He just stared at the screen, breathing slow and heavy. His knuckles went white around the edge of the desk. This wasn't an affair. It was an execution. A slow, coordinated erasure of his career, his marriage, his life. He opened a text window and began typing. Shard_01.initiate. Begin phase 1 target. STR_alpha status. Observing outside, a car passed. Colt didn't look up. They thought they won. They forgot who they were dealing with. The office blueprints were older, buried deep in city archives, but Colt knew how to dig. Stroud Tower had blind spots, places cameras didn't reach and security assumed were safe. Victor, overconfident as ever, relied on thick doors and locked drawers. Colt relied on human error. By midnight, he had access to the building's backup surveillance system. Unfiltered, unencrypted, he watched Victor's private floor flicker to life. Elevator arrivals, late-night meetings, unlocked desktops left open too long. That's where he saw it. A numbered folder, left open for 14 seconds. STR_ghost fund. Inside, routing numbers, multiple shell core, a forged trail of investment firms, and one unexpected name. Lana. The same offshore accounts Colt flagged days ago now connected directly to that fund. But there was more files named in code. Some of those file names matched documents Colt himself had handled during his time as project lead. Only, they were altered, rewritten. They were framing him for their laundering scheme. Colt leaned back, the motel room humming with the quiet buzz of electronics. A knock at the door. He froze. One hand reached for the burner, the other for the flash drive. He checked the peephole. A pizza delivery guy. I didn't order. The delivery guy held up a note. Says to deliver this and tell you. Still tracking you, ghost. Colt took the box slowly. Inside, no pizza. Just a single Polaroid. A surveillance shot of him in the motel hallway. Date stamped 2 days ago. He turned to the laptop. Quickly shut it down. Someone else was watching him. Someone inside the company? Or worse, someone from the past. Either way, he'd been made. And the game just shifted from offense to survival. Colt knew one rule better than any from his old life. Never trust the obvious trail. The pizza delivery stunt wasn't meant to harm him. It was meant to shake him, throw him off balance. It worked for about 10 seconds. He opened a fresh system shell. His protocol bypassed the mainframe completely. He tunneled straight into Lana's encrypted cloud backups, ones she didn't even know were still syncing. Photos, notes, voice memos. Then, a locked file. It took him 23 minutes to crack it. What he found wasn't just betrayal. It was intent. A voice memo. Date stamped 3 weeks before the firing. Lana's voice, calm, almost bored. Victor says we pull the trigger after the March Gala. Colt won't see it coming. Once the funds clear, we're done. I've got the passports. Just don't screw this up. He's smarter than he looks. Colt stared at the waveform pulsing on the screen. She was planning it the whole time. Every kiss, every dinner, every moment they shared that month, it was all a script. A goodbye written in poison. He listened again. Not to the words, but her tone. Emotionless. Businesslike. Like he was never real. His jaw tightened. He copied the memo to a drive marked fuel. He opened a second window, tracking her current location through rideshare histories and card swipes. Miami. Staying under the name L. Royce. She wasn't hiding from the world. She was hiding from him. He packed fast. Tools. Drives. Cash. Before leaving, he checked the room mirror. Not for vanity. For presence. Cold eyes stared back. Focused. Controlled. Time to make you real again, he muttered, zipping his bag. Outside, the rain had stopped, and Colt Maddox was back on the move. Colt waited in the back booth of a dive bar just outside Tampa, the kind of place where nobody asked questions and the jukebox still played cassette tapes. A half-empty beer sat in front of him, untouched. At exactly 9:15, she walked in, black leather jacket, tactical boots, hair tied tight. Nova Cruz. Ex-field operative. Off-grid since 2019. Colt once saved her life. He was counting on that debt still holding weight. She slid into the booth without a word, eyed the flash drive he'd placed on the table. That from the girl? She asked, voice low. He nodded. She was good, Nova said. You were better. Not good enough, Colt replied. They plugged the drive into her rig, small, portable, heavily encrypted. Her eyes scanned the files, the accounts, the audio. This isn't revenge, she said. This is an operation. I want both, Colt said. Payback and precision. Nova leaned back. Victor's locked in with old money and dirty favors. He's got ghosts on payroll. So do I, Colt said. You, if you're in. A pause. Nova cracked her neck. What's the play? We don't hit him first. We watch. Let them think they won. Then we crack the glass from the inside. Nova tapped the key, her smile slow and dangerous. Now that's my kind of fire. Colt looked out the window. A black SUV passed slowly. He tracked it in the reflection of his glass. He reached for his bag. They're sniffing already. Nova nodded. Then we move now. They disappeared into the night, shadow against shadow. Behind them, the screen blinked with one word. Phase 2. Ignition. The warehouse on the edge of Sarasota looked like it hadn't seen life in years. Rust crept up its walls like a disease, windows half-shattered, roof sagging. But inside, Nova had turned it into a digital war room. Colt stood in front of the whiteboard covered in faces, accounts, and arrows. Lana. Victor. 3 executives. 2 offshore proxies. He circled one name, Charles Deakins, CFO of Stroud Developments. He's the weakest link, Colt said. Only one without legacy ties to Victor. Paper trail shows he had doubts about the fund. Nova looked up from her rig. So bait him. No. We break him. Colt had already drafted a fake tip from an anonymous source, leaking internal files that hinted Charles was the whistleblower behind the ghost fund exposure. It was only a matter of time before Victor found it. Plant goes live in 2 hours, Colt said, snapping the burner shut. We wait. Nova lit a cigarette, exhaled slow. You ever think about what happens after this? After their dust? Colt didn't answer. 2 hours later, the email hit Victor's inbox. Colt monitored the metadata live. Within minutes, internal emails flew across the company server. Charles was pulled into a closed-door meeting. Colt watched as Victor's paranoia bloomed. Cameras showed the CFO escorted out by security. No bags, no warning. He smiled faintly. They'll implode faster if they don't trust each other, Nova said. Exactly. Then, just before midnight, Colt made his first real move. He logged into a dead account and sent Victor a message. You should have killed the ghost when you had the chance. Attached, a still frame of Lana laughing on his office desk. No signature. Just chaos. Victor Stroud's penthouse office sat like a throne atop the city, glass walls, expensive art, the skyline as a backdrop. Colt remembered every inch of it. He'd spent years designing the internal comms systems here, building firewalls Victor never bothered to understand. Now, he owned them. Colt and Nova were camped 2 blocks away in a rented apartment, equipment humming across a 6-monitor setup. One screen showed internal messages from Stroud's executive chain. Another tracked Victor's personal assistant's keystrokes. At 3:47 a.m., a flagged phrase popped up. Find out if Charles spoke to IRS. Colt leaned in. Nova was already digging. He's panicking. Calls to Cayman went out an hour ago. He's shifting funds. Colt nodded. Let him. We'll follow every wire. They were already one step ahead. Every reroute Victor attempted passed through a snare Colt embedded 5 years ago, designed for emergency asset trace. He never thought he'd use it against the man who toasted him at his wedding. On screen, Victor dialed a secured line. The audio feed was muffled, but the words were clear enough. No one finds out. Bury it. I don't care what it costs. Nova typed as she listened. He just greenlit a black bag sweep on Charles's apartment. Good, Colt said. Let him get his hands dirty. More evidence. Nova glanced over. You've done this before, haven't you? Once. Baghdad. Civilian contractor. Thought he was untouchable too. The room went quiet. Colt clicked a folder labeled GhostFund_video 1. He uploaded it to a cloud cache timestamped, geotagged, prepped for leak if needed. Then, for the first time in days, he leaned back and took a breath. Victor was unraveling, and the noose was getting tighter. Colt hadn't watched their wedding footage since the night they returned from the honeymoon. Lana had insisted they leave it unspoiled. She said it was for the future, for when they had kids. Now it played on screen with cold precision. Her smile, so bright. His suit, a bit too tight. The way she whispered, "I love you," under her breath as they danced. Colt watched without blinking. He muted the audio and began editing. Side by side, he inserted cutaway footage, grainy surveillance of Lana kissing Victor, laughing as she handed him a keycard in a dim parking lot. Another clip, Lana, at a private airport, boarding a jet registered under Stroud Holdings. Each splice was seamless. The wedding video transitioned into a horror reel. Her vows, overlapped by her betrayal. Her forever layered under a shot of her hugging Victor from behind. Colt finished the cut and uploaded it onto a USB. Clean. No fingerprints. No metadata. Nova walked in, glanced at the screen. That's cold. She made it easy, Colt said quietly. He wrapped the USB in a small velvet box, looked like a luxury gift. 2 hours later, it was dropped off at Lana's current condo by an anonymous courier. No note. No return address. She'd open it. She'd watch it. And she'd know exactly who was behind it. Back at the apartment, Colt stood at the window. Rain streaked down the glass. He didn't smile. Didn't frown. But his hands were steady now. And somewhere across the city, hers wouldn't be. Victor Stroud sat at the head of the long mahogany conference table, red-faced, his tie askew. The boardroom was tense, air-conditioned silence pressing down like concrete. For executives stared at their tablets, pretending not to notice the storm rising across the room. Colt watched it unfold through the hacked internal camera feed, projected onto the safe house monitors. He's rattled, Nova muttered, sipping from a chipped mug. You see his hand? It's shaking. On screen, Victor slammed a folder shut. You're telling me the IRS has already frozen Asset Group 3? That account was untouchable. His CFO replacement, some stiff in a navy suit, fidgeted. We traced it. The leak came from someone inside. But sir, the timestamps, they don't match Charles. Colt leaned forward. Good. Let him chase shadows. Nova switched screens. Lana appeared in Victor's office an hour later. She wasn't smiling this time. Her heels clicked across the marble, arms crossed, her jaw tense. We need to talk. Now. Victor waved the others out. Colt turned up the audio feed. You sent that, she hissed. You think I wouldn't figure it out? That USB wasn't from some hacker, he sent it. Victor lowered his voice. Keep it down. You're not thinking straight. Oh, I'm thinking just fine, Lana snapped. You told me this would be clean. Now my name's tied to stolen accounts, offshore wires, and that video that was a message. Victor poured himself a drink. He's not a threat. He's noise. He's a ghost, Lana said. And ghosts don't send warnings. They bury you. Victor didn't answer, but his eyes, for the first time, faltered. Colt paused the feed. Did you see that? He said. He's scared. Nova nodded slowly. One more crack, and he'll split. Colt stood in front of a mirror in a small barbershop tucked into the back alley of downtown Atlanta. Fluorescent lights buzzed above. His hair was shorter now, darker. No beard. Different glasses. Different walk. Mason Beck, he told the clerk at the ID printing station later that night. Virginia address. Freelance IT consultant. The man didn't ask questions. Just printed the card. In less than 48 hours, Colt Maddox became someone else. He had to. Victor's people had been poking around too close. Security drones spotted near the Sarasota warehouse. It was time to disappear in plain sight. He relocated to a mid-rise in Buckhead under the new name. Sparse furniture. No photos. Just a desk, a wall-mounted monitor, and a burner phone. Nova stayed mobile, hopping safe houses by the hour. They communicated through code phrases, never directly. It was like slipping back into his old skin. Only this time, the mission was personal. Through a dummy corp, Colt bought a controlling interest in a struggling architecture firm, the same firm Victor used as a shell company for laundering real estate holdings. He signed the papers using Mason's name. No fanfare. No attention. Just clean leverage. By week's end, he legally owned one of Victor's offshore conduits. He'll find out eventually, Nova said during a secure call. You ready for that? Colt's voice was calm. That's the point. He stood at the edge of a new high-rise project, one Victor had pitched as his retirement crown jewel. Now, Colt controlled half the permits. Watching the steel bones of the unfinished tower rise, Colt felt something cold and clear settle in his chest. He wasn't just dismantling Victor's world. He was replacing it. Colt arrived at the offshore estate auction dressed in all black, no tie, dark sunglasses. The event was invitation only, filled with corrupt investors, washed-up politicians, and legacy sharks hiding behind trust funds. He fit in. Nova sat at the back, hair bleached, dressed like a bored heiress. She played her part with quiet poise, tapping notes into her phone. On the screen, one estate after another flashed by. Caribbean villas, mountain compounds, private islands. Then came Lot 43, a sprawling retreat in the Caymans. Private landing strip. Underground vaults. Victor Stroud's personal bolt hole. Registered under a fake company. Slated for foreclosure. Thanks to Colt's quiet freezing of funds. He tapped his paddle once. Others hesitated. A man from Dubai offered $1.2 million. Colt raised, casually, $1.5. Silence. The auctioneer nodded. Sold. Nova texted him seconds later. He'll know by morning. We're on borrowed time now. Colt left the auction hall without looking back. The paperwork finalized within hours. Ownership transferred to a shell corp registered in Switzerland, also owned by Mason Beck. By the time Victor even heard about the auction, Colt already had security sweeping the property. Vaults emptied. Systems wiped. Cameras installed. Nova sent him a one-line message. We just bought his last escape route. Colt stood on the balcony of Victor's former fortress. Ocean wind in his face. He lit a match and dropped it into the steel fire pit on the patio. The flames caught instantly, illuminating the darkness. He poured a drink. Not for celebration. For declaration. Phase 3 was next. And this time, the world would know exactly what Victor Stroud had built, and who was about to burn it down. The ballroom shimmered with crystal chandeliers and soft jazz. Stroud Development's annual gala had always been a vanity show, wealthy guests sipping champagne while Victor preened on stage, boasting of legacy and power. This year, Colt attended too. Not in person. From a rooftop across the street, he sat beside Nova in a portable command van, eyes fixed on the camera feed. Every inch of the ballroom was covered: stage, buffet, security booths. Streams live, Nova confirmed. You want the honors? Colt clicked a single button. The projector behind Victor, who had just stepped up to the podium, glitched. Guests turned. The lights dimmed. Then, without warning, the first video played. Victor's private conversations. His offshore accounts. Surveillance footage of him signing off under fake aliases. Doctored spreadsheets. Audio files discussing wire fraud. Gasps echoed. Phones went up. Some laughed nervously, thinking it was a prank. But then came Lana in Victor's office, her voice crystal clear. Once Colt's out, we move fast. His name's already on the dummy fund. Victor froze on stage. The crowd fell into silence. He stared at the screen, his entire empire bleeding in front of clients, press, and executives. Security scrambled. Guests whispered. Investors slipped toward the exits. Victor backed away from the mic, his voice cracking. Shut it down. Now. Too late. Nova grinned. 33,000 people are watching this stream live. Colt watched Victor's eyes, wild, lost, cornered. He leaned into the mic on their end. "Hello, Victor," Colt said quietly. Victor snapped his head up. That voice, undeniable. "Remember me?" The feed cut. The damage, however, didn't. Back at the hideout, Colt was calm. He unpacked a hard drive, changed into clean clothes, and poured himself a quiet glass of water. Nova was still at the rig, cataloging fallout from the leak. Then he saw it. A manila envelope on the edge of the table. Neither of them had left it there. Nova turned around slowly. That wasn't here an hour ago. Colt opened it. Inside, photos. Dozens. All of them. In Atlanta. In Miami. At the auction. Every movement. Every disguise. Dated. Stamped. A note paperclipped to the top. "You're not the only one watching. Ghost." His breath slowed. Nova's eyes narrowed. Victor's surveillance team? Colt shook his head. Too clean. This is someone else. She lifted a photo, one from a week ago. Taken inside the safe house. No security breach. No digital log. Nova's voice dropped. That place was cold. How did they get in? Colt said nothing. His mind raced. Only one explanation made sense. This wasn't about revenge anymore. Someone else was in the game, and they were playing for higher stakes. Colt sat on the floor of the new hideout, photos spread in front of him like a crime scene. He studied them carefully, angles, shadows, reflections. Whoever took them knew how to avoid detection. They'd used analog gear. No wireless signature. Nova worked quietly in the background, running facial scans on background figures. "Got something," she said finally. 3 photos have a shadow match. Male. About 6 feet. Seen near the gala and the auction. Same frame in both. She magnified the shot. The figure was blurry, but Colt recognized the silhouette. "Jude Ashcroft," he muttered. Nova frowned. "You know him?" "Used to." Colt stood, jaw tightening. He was an asset handler. Black market broker. Took intel and sold it to whoever paid best. "I crossed him once." "And now he's crossing you back?" Colt nodded. "Jude doesn't care about Victor. He's not loyal to anyone. If he's tracking me, it means he's after something I don't see yet." Nova leaned on the table. "You think Lana's working with him? She might not even know he's alive." Colt began packing up. "Doesn't matter. We find him before he finds a way in." Nova zipped her gear. "Where to?" Colt's eyes were sharp again. Focused. He likes leverage. Power. Places with dirt under the floors. He opened a map. D.C. The apartment in D.C. was sterile, cold furniture, white walls, no trace of personality. Colt hated it on sight, which meant it was perfect. Nova scanned nearby signals, sweeping for bugs. "We're clean for now." Colt paced. "Jude's here. I can feel it." He'd sent a false inquiry to one of Jude's known shell accounts asking for intel on Stroud. A trap. Now they waited. At 2:12 a.m., the burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text only. "You're too slow, Ghost. Let's make it fun." Attached, a video file. Nova opened it. Colt's blood ran cold. The screen showed a dark room. A figure tied to a chair. Hooded. Then, Nova's voice played through the video, distorted, looped. "I don't think you're ready for this." Colt snapped toward Nova. "That's not you." "I know," she said, eyes narrowing. It was a threat. A warning. Or both. Jude was telling them. He could replace voices. Footage. People. Colt clenched his fists. "All right," he whispered. "You want in? You just got it." He turned off the lights. Sat back in silence. This wasn't just about Lana anymore. Not about Victor. Not even about revenge. This was about control. And Jude just crossed a line. Colt moved like a machine through the streets of D.C. His face remained unreadable, but Nova could see the tightness in his shoulders. He didn't speak much as they set up the new safe zone, a nondescript brownstone with layered signal blockers and blacked-out windows. "You really think Jude's going to come out of the shadows?" Nova asked. "He already has," Colt replied, pulling up transaction logs. "I just traced a silent payout, $2 million wired from one of Stroud's fallback accounts to a dummy firm in the Caymans." "That dummy firm?" "Tied to Jude's old network." Nova leaned over. "Victor hired him?" Colt nodded once. "He thinks Jude's going to finish what he couldn't." Nova exhaled sharply. You've pissed off some dangerous men. I hope they're pissed, Colt said, eyes still on the screen. Means I'm close. Then the second ping came in, an unlisted FTP server activated from a public library an hour ago. Colt opened it. A video loaded. Nova, tied to a chair, blood on her face, duct tape over her mouth. Except she was standing right next to him. What the hell, she whispered. Colt studied the footage. Every frame matched her real features. Expressions. Movements. But it wasn't real. Deep fake, Colt muttered. Perfect enough to fool a judge or a kill team. Nova blinked slowly. They're framing me? They're framing both of us, Colt said. Jude doesn't want to kill me. He wants to erase me. He opened his laptop and loaded his old field software. Time to remind them, Colt said quietly, that some ghosts can still bleed. The abandoned black site sat under a decommissioned power plant in Virginia, government off-book, no paper trail, no oversight. Colt had been there once before, years ago. It was meant to disappear, and mostly it had. But Jude hadn't forgotten it. Colt entered with Nova trailing behind, cloaked in layers of signal jammers and thermal blockers. Every step echoed off steel and dust. They reached the main chamber, rows of old servers still humming on backup generators. Colt knelt near a terminal and connected his drive. I found traces of Jude's last upload here, he said. Encrypted commands. Broadcast relays. Nova swept the area with a flashlight. You think he's using this to launch the deepfakes? Worse. He's storing leverage here, blackmail, contracts, surveillance data. This is his vault. Then they heard it. Footsteps. 3 sets. Nova pulled her weapon. Colt ducked behind the server stack, gun drawn, eyes locked. A laser sight cut through the dark. Then voices. Negative visual. Spread out. Colt signaled with 2 fingers, flank. Nova disappeared left. Gunfire cracked. Colt dropped one man with 2 clean shots. Nova handled the second. The third tried to run. Colt tackled him near the exit. Who sent you? Colt growled. The man choked. Ashcroft wanted to buy time. Said, you'd come looking. Colt pulled the comms mic from his collar. Where is he? The man grinned, blood in his teeth. You're too late. A click. The servers sparked. Self-destruct protocol. Colt dragged Nova out just as the floor rumbled behind them. Outside, smoke rolled into the sky. What now? Nova asked, coughing. Colt stared into the rising smoke. We just set fire to his brain. They regrouped in a silent loft in Baltimore, far from digital eyes. Colt stared at the wall of printed photos, Jude, Victor, and Lana, all connected by red string. Every operation Colt had tracked was there, but one name kept circling back. Lana Royce Ashcroft. Nova sat across from him, expression tight. What's that name? She asked. Colt said nothing. He just slid a document across the table. Lana's marriage license. Dated 7 years ago. Husband, Jude Ashcroft. Nova's face paled. She was married to Jude before you? She never filed divorce paperwork. Never told me. Our wedding. Colt swallowed hard. It was never legal. Jesus, Nova whispered. Colt stood, pacing. I thought I was the mark. But I wasn't just the target. I was the cover. Nova's voice was cold. They played the long game. He nodded. Lana seduced me on Jude's orders. Used my credentials to set up shell companies, then planted me inside Victor's empire. Nova leaned forward. Then why the betrayal? Why fire you? Why blow it all up? Because I was no longer useful, Colt said. I went quiet after the ops. Started playing clean. They needed someone to blame when the walls started closing in. And now, she asked. Colt met her gaze. Now I'm the storm they never planned for. Victor Stroud sat in a live TV interview, a damage control move. Hair combed, voice steady, he wore the mask of a man pretending to be unshaken. Colt tapped into the live feed from a back channel, Nova watching from her rig. He clicked a key. The broadcast screen flickered. Static. Then audio. Victor's voice, from the surveillance leaks, let Ashcroft handle it. Maddox doesn't walk out of this. The interviewer froze. Victor blinked. Another voice followed, Jude's. If the ghost reappears, I'll bury him in his own ashes. The studio erupted. Colt clicked again, more footage. Documents. Money transfers. On air, Victor panicked. Cut the feed. Cut it. But it was live. Colt's voice broke through the audio, quiet and clear. Hello again, Victor. This time, it's your name on the burner. The screen went black. Nova turned. He's finished. Colt leaned back. No, he said. He's exposed. Now we go after what matters next. Nova arched a brow. And what's that? Colt looked down at Lana's name on the file. He didn't answer, but his silence said everything. The courtroom was silent but tense, like a live wire waiting to snap. Reporters filled every row. The prosecutor shuffled papers with quiet confidence. Lana sat at the defense table, perfectly dressed, makeup flawless, but her hands trembled slightly on her lap. Colt watched from the back bench, blending into the crowd. No emotion showed on his face. He wasn't here for drama. He was here for the truth to land where it belonged. The prosecutor cleared her throat and began. Exhibit C. A certified marriage license issued in Nevada, dated 7 years prior to Ms. Lana Royce's second, unregistered wedding to Colt Maddox. Murmurs spread. Lana didn't flinch. She stared ahead like she couldn't hear them. The attorney continued, voice sharpening. And here, Exhibit D. Multiple wire transfers made using Mr. Maddox's credentials, without his knowledge, to offshore companies registered under aliases linked to both Ms. Royce and a known international black market broker, Jude Ashcroft. One word, fraud. Another, conspiracy. And finally, bigamy. Her attorney stood to object, but the damage was already bleeding through the room. The photos, the account logs, the call recordings. They were airtight. Then came the final blow, a video file. Lana's voice, recorded just weeks before Colt was fired. Once he's out, we disappear. His name takes the fall. He doesn't get a damn thing. The judge called for recess. Lana didn't move. As the courtroom cleared, she turned. Her eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on Colt. He didn't move, didn't blink, didn't smile. She opened her mouth, but he stood and walked away before a single word could leave her lips. Some endings didn't need conversation. They met in the parking garage under a shuttered casino just outside Atlantic City. Colt stood alone. No gun, no mask, just clarity in his eyes. Jude arrived in a silver SUV, flanked by 2 men in unmarked gear. He stepped out slowly, clapping. Well played, Jude said. Didn't think you still had it in you. Colt didn't answer. Jude chuckled. Victor's in custody. Lana's face is on every news cycle. You've taken down your ghosts. So what now? You want closure? A clean kill. Colt took one step forward. I don't need to kill you, Jude. You sure? Jude smirked. Because I came ready. He snapped his fingers. One of his men opened the trunk, bags of data, hard drives, surveillance gear. Colt didn't even flinch. You came to bury me. But I already burned your name an hour ago. Jude frowned. Colt tossed a phone onto the ground. The screen glowed with a countdown timer. Jude stepped forward, suspicious. What's that? Colt's voice was calm. Every file you've hoarded. The vault at the black site. Your buyers. The contracts. All of it. Dumped to federal agencies, Interpol, and 5 rival networks. You're bluffing. No, Colt said. You're already buried. Jude lunged forward. But Colt stepped back, raising a hand. Try anything, and the failsafe activates the rest. There's no clean exit for you. Jude stared at him, jaw locked. Then, slowly, he stepped away. You're not the same man I knew. Colt didn't blink. I know. He turned and walked toward the elevator. Behind him, Jude stood still, watching his power crumble. The hill overlooked a quiet, tree-lined bluff where the air moved slow and clean. Colt knelt beside a patch of soft soil, a small box in his hands. Inside was everything that had once meant something. His old wedding ring, the flash drive with the last backup of the surveillance tapes, and the dog tag from his old unit. He set the box down. Nova stood a few feet back, watching silently. This where it ends? She asked. No, Colt said softly. This is where I ended. He covered the box with dirt, slow and steady. No ceremony, no theatrics, just silence. When it was done, he stood and looked out at the horizon. Nova stepped up beside him. No loose ends. None that matter. She didn't press. They walked back to the truck parked down the hill. As they drove off, Colt rolled the window down. Wind rushed through. Sunlight touched his face. There were no news headlines that day. No explosions. No final standoff. But somewhere, Victor sat in a cell. Lana, disgraced and bankrupt, was off every boardroom list in the country. Jude vanished into the void. Colt didn't need the world to know what happened. He knew. And sometimes that was enough. 2 months later, the world had moved on. Headlines had shifted. New scandals, new names. But behind the scenes, the damage Colt left behind still echoed through boardrooms and back channels. Victor Stroud remained in federal custody, awaiting trial. Half his empire was frozen, the rest bleeding value by the hour. Lana had vanished from public view, her assets seized, her name blacklisted in every investor circle. Her face occasionally popped up in tabloids, looking thinner, older, distant. Jude? Last known location, Amsterdam. His fake passports burned, accounts empty. Some said he was running. Others whispered he was already dead. Colt didn't chase the rumors. He was building something different now. In a quiet office just outside Nashville, behind a nondescript security firm, Colt founded Shield Protocol, an anonymous group that supported whistleblowers, protected digital evidence, and exposed corporate predators. No interviews. No articles. No one knew his name. But those who needed help, they found him. Nova ran ops out of a mobile rig, still bouncing from city to city. They kept things lean, sharp, clean. One night, Colt stood on the office rooftop, looking over the skyline. No more disguises. No aliases. Just him. The city below blinked with distant lights. Not chaos. Not noise. Peace. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his coat. It was Lana's note, the one she left the day she disappeared. He lit a match. Watched it burn. Nova joined him, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. "You good?" she asked. Colt took a breath. "I think so." She nudged him. "So what now?" He looked at her, calm. "Now we help others build what I had to burn." It was raining again. Colt walked down a quiet neighborhood street. Hoodie up, hands in his coat. No guns. No surveillance. No mission. Just a visit. He stopped at a small house with yellow siding and wind chimes on the porch. Inside, an old man sat at the window, sipping tea. A former client. A survivor Colt had once protected. The man raised his cup in a silent thanks. Colt nodded back, then kept walking. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a ghost anymore either. He was something else now. A reckoning no one could predict. And unlike revenge, this legacy would live on through the people he helped, the corrupt systems he broke, and the voices he made impossible to silence. He passed a kid on a bike who stared at him curiously. Colt smiled just a little, then disappeared around the corner. No cameras. No final shot. Just quiet. And peace. But before you go, let me ask you something. What would you do if everything was taken from you? Would you forgive, or would you fight? Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I want to hear your story too. If you felt this journey, if it made you think, feel, or even clench your fists a little, hit that like button to show your support. And subscribe so you never miss the next epic revenge thriller coming your way. Until then, take care of yourselves. And remember, not every ghost disappears. Some of them rebuild. See you in the next story.